And it's a great pleasure to have you here. You were invited to one of the Zoom labs. It was in
Yes.
2016. And I remember the work that you brought here, and it was about the name of the project was Identity.
Right.
It's pictures of the eyes of politicians, it's pictures of the posters of politicians and just framing the eyes of the politicians in two different ways. One way, which is the look that the politicians have and they promote through all this campaign of publicity and propaganda. And then we have also how people vandalize those eyes, which is
exactly
how people respond to that look. They're looking at people. So yeah, please, would you expand a little bit more on that project and also the experience you had here in Colombia?
Be happy to. Yeah. So that series came from outside the U.S., which I'm from the U.S. originally, but outside the U.S., political campaigns include posters of the candidates, and these are posters that have typically a portrait, a head and shoulder portrait of the candidate on there, looking at the camera, looking straight at the camera, trying to tell the people to look at me, believe in me, love me, vote for me is what they're really asking for.
Yeah.
And so I found it fascinating because the picture that's on the poster is the picture that the candidate said, that's me, that's how I want to be represented to the public. I wasn't trying to do a tabloid, approach to making the candidates look bad. These are pictures that they chose, to be presented to the public. Mm-hmm. What I did then was a crop, and the crop is basically eyebrows to bags, is how I call it, and temple to temple. And the reason is it goes back to the adage in every culture that says the eyes are the window to the soul, the eyes are the mirror of the soul. And that's true in every culture. There's that saying. Yeah. And my question was, if you eliminate all the other noise in the image, smiles that are typically fake, they're not real smiles, or you also eliminate a lot of the ethnic markers. And when you get just down to the eyes, you can't really tell what ethnicity the person is or what culture they're from. Just the eyes looking, the eyes don't lie. I remember as a child, my mom saying to me, look at me when I'm talking to you. Are you telling the truth? Because your eyes do not lie. They tell the truth all the time. Yeah. So by doing that crop then, it helped reveal what the politicians really are thinking, and gives us an idea of what their souls are reflecting, through their eyes. Mm-hmm. That was one half of the series. The other half of the series then was that I found that oftentimes posters get vandalized, they get defaced. And most of the time when people deface the posters, they would go after the eyes. They would do something to the eyes as if to say to the candidates, you don't have permission to look at me. I don't want to look at you. Yeah. And so it's really, really violent expression sometimes of a cigarette being snubbed out in an eyeball, or people scratching eyes out with knives or whatever, painting over them. They do different things to the eyes. Mm-hmm. So if you saw the eyes originally of the candidate, you form an opinion of that candidate based upon the original set of eyes. Mm-hmm. Positive, negative, neutral, whatever you judge from that. But then when you switch over to the eyes that are vandalized, the one with the swastika in particular, it materially changes your perception of that candidate. It mm-hmm. cannot help but bias your opinion about that candidate, positive or negative. There's no middle ground on this one. And so that's what this juxtaposition of the two sets of eyes mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. is what I tried to present in that case.
It was very nice to have that look on the city, because the main topic of that Zoom lab, it was like the subjective view on the urban landscape or the city, how city reacts. And this is very urban expression. It is something that belongs to the city. The city is a place to exhibit posters, which is interesting if you look at that way. Posters are some have the expression of the power, and then people is also expressing themselves with vandalizing the poster. So it was very nice to see that work.
I borrowed a camera from my dad when I was about 8 years old. My father was a hobbyist photographer, family, not just family vacation photos, but he's always doing some landscape work, or then he picked up an interest in macro photography. And it intrigued me. And he had an old camera he loaned me when I was 8 years old, and I never gave it back to him actually. But it began an interest in photography from a very, very early age. So my father and I took a course at a community college, 12 years old, and it was basic darkroom photography. And shortly after that, we had a darkroom in our house as well, because Dad loved it and I loved it as well. Wow. And that became my interest in photography. It just became just a fascination with the process, with composition, with textures. And that said, it's been a part of my life my entire life. It was always on the side, things I did. I did not major in photography in college. I studied some photography things. I had a mentor I learned a lot from. And I kept doing photography on my own, just as a personal expression of life. And it wasn't until, it's been about 12 years ago, I think it was. And I sent a series off to Black and White magazine here in the US, a very great publication. And they published a series of my photography. And it was a first time third-party validation of my work. Somebody who did not know me, somebody who wasn't family or friends. Your family and friends are great, right? Oh, I love your work, but do they really know or not? And so to have a third-party critique of my work became a wake-up call. I'm not getting younger. And it's like, why am I not taking my work more seriously?
I saw you work in Houston in PhotoFest. So you also did this effort to go to PhotoFest and to show the portfolio to many curators. How was it? How was it for you?
Tell you, it was game changing. If there are photographers listening to this video who've not been to a portfolio review, you've got to do it. Because again, you sit down with I call it speed dating, right? Because you have 20 minutes to share your work with a curator or a collector or a gallery or a museum. But it's a chance to get raw, unvarnished feedback from professionals, people who've looked at thousands upon thousands of bodies of work. And they look at your work and they can tell you right away, this is interesting, this is not. This is something new. This is something we've seen before. And so yes, I've been to PhotoFest a few times now and some other portfolio reviews as well, just because it's a chance to get that feedback and a chance to have an opportunity to share your work in other locations. You meet new people. It's where I met you. We had a chance to talk about my work. And before I knew it, I was down at Zoom Lab, as an invited artist. I'm working with university students and everything. So the portfolio reviews are, to me, they're essential. I still go. I'll go again next year to PhotoFest probably. So.
So you had actually, you exhibit your work in the Gallery of Colombo Americano, but you also had work with students.
I really enjoyed it. I am not a photography teacher. I'm not an instructor like some people are that teach at a university level or whatever. But it was a chance then to work with some amazing students, and they weren't all photography students. Most of them were not. They were art students. And so for some of them, it was a way to adopt to a new media, try something different outside their core area. But the students were amazing. They were very much engaged. We did a study of, was it private, public, and intimate? I think is what the subject was, I believe.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, and we had our canvas, if you will, was Medellin. And so through different field trips we did out, different parts of the city, the close to the barrios, to the city center, to redeveloped areas and so forth, a chance for us to try to paint a portrait of the city based upon that subject of intimate, private, and public. And each of the students really, really engaged in the process. I mean, they're amazing to work with. Despite language barriers, because my Spanish is not so good, but I had a great interpreter. Thank you very much. And the students were great to work with. I hope they got some benefit out of it from my standpoint. I know I got some benefit out of it, working with them. They were amazing students. And, to you think about it, we were together for, was it 10 days, I think at the most, a little more than a week.
Yeah.
Day one, meeting each other, and day 10, opening a show, that's a tall order. And like those types of constraints really make you focus on what's important, what's essential. So the students were shooting and editing and shooting and editing. And some of them, not until the last day, had a clear picture of their portfolio or what they wanted to share in the show. But I think in the end, the show was quite a success, I think, from their standpoint.
I mean, the whole experience for them, and for sure, they will remember for the rest of their lives. And yeah, we went out in several field trips, and it's all about, in Zoom Lab, it's always like this. So we have encounters, it's a very collective experience. We have some presentations. We met so many people of the other universities as well. So it is very nice to have you guys here, and we had some other photographers as well that version of Zoom Lab, and yeah, it was great.
It really wasn't until I was in university, I think, that I met a fellow he was a staff member at the university. He was not a teacher, but an amazing photographer named Howard Stevens. And Howard and I just hit it off. We're photographers, passionate about our work. And he became a mentor for me. And actually, I took a couple of independent studies underneath him to develop my work, where he would teach me a new technique, perhaps in the darkroom, and then I would go out, create a body of work around that. And so it was about that time when I finally started putting out some pieces that I realized that had some artistic merit to them. Right. The two projects I sent you, there's one that's easier to talk about than the other. The other one's a little more complicated, and I'm still not figuring out quite how to show it. But the one work that I think it'd be great to talk about is one called used protection. And used protection kind of has a double meaning to it in English, right? It's I used protection, or it is used protection that's been discarded. This series deals with the discarded masks of people that, without much regard, would just throw their masks on the ground. If you think about it from a health perspective, theoretically they're laced with some sort of, perhaps virus or bacteria, and people would just kind of toss them aside outside of buildings or wherever they were, and they would give them less consideration than they would perhaps a used tissue or something. Used tissues usually ended up in a waste bin or a trash can of some kind. All the time, I saw these things. They were all over the place and just being discarded. There were millions of masks that were disposable masks that were used, during the COVID time period.
It's so much waste.
Oh, it's amazing.
These days, and one of the problems, it has to do with the how we treat nature. But now, we have to protect ourselves by producing a lot of waste.
Here are some of the images from this series we can take a look at.
Well, this is amazing because it's like, it looks like it is taken in golden hour. It looks very sharp light.
It is pretty sharp light, and this image in particular, it's a red mask, and just the way it's laying on the ground like it is.
Oh wow!
In this case, the person took time to wad it up and tie it off and pitch it, almost as if it's a used condom or something. It's not like there weren't bins sitting around. These are all these were found outside of buildings, outside of stores or shops or whatever, parking lots in different places. But I just found it really strange that they were discarded as thus.
Yeah.
They sort of became part of the landscape at the same time. It's collected and picked up by nature in certain ways.
Exactly. Yeah, it reacts to the landscape.
Right. I don't think these people necessarily litter all the time. It's just, for whatever, this mask is a symbol of control. It's their reaction. It's their response to, I want this off my face. I don't want to deal with this. And we all know that feeling. We all dealt with masks on our faces for more than a year.
I know.
They're uncomfortable. So I understand where we all react to that, but they're not going away. They're here to stay.
That's true. And how about the other project?
This other series is called You Are Not Here. And if you think about when you go to a place, you go to a big park, perhaps. There's a sign to enter the park, and it shows a map of the park, and there's a little star that says you are here. So you have a sense of orientation where you are. So it's based upon that concept. Well, in the world that we live in, we talked about the phones and the technology we have available to us.
Mm-hmm.
We are able to pinpoint exactly where we are. The entire globe has been mapped, down to about like a 3 foot, 1 meter space. It's amazing on how detailed it is. And so this series deals with a piece of the ground. It's a shot of the ground where I was standing in different places. Each of my photographs are geotagged, which you can do with your phone, right? Every phone has a geotagging in it. So I can give you the exact latitude and longitude, so you can find exactly where I was standing. So you see the photograph. With a QR code, I can take you to Google Maps. So using Google Earth, you can see that exact spot where I was standing. And then I also record audio from that same moment when I'm there. And so you can hear the audio. All you're seeing is what I saw on the ground, but you hear what I heard in that space. But I can take you there virtually through Google Earth as a process. So it's a combination of the geotagging with Google Earth, with audio, with the photograph. And so you are here, but you're not here is the basis of this concept. If I were not an artist, I could see myself, actually, it sounds really strange, as being a meteorologist. I enjoy watching the weather. It sounds kind of crazy, but I grew up in Kansas originally, and Kansas is in an area called Tornado Alley. And so from April through July is the peak tornado season. And so I enjoy the weather. I also love plants. I could see myself as being a horticulturist, maybe a landscape designer, perhaps, something like that. I love music. I've never seen myself as being good enough to go professional, in some aspect. But I also was pretty naive about that as a child. I thought I'd go into music at some point, but I thought it was either teaching or performing, not understanding the whole technical background and opportunity of producing and mixing and creating, and so other aspects of the business.
Interesting, because it's somehow it reminds me, or I can see that is about curiosity for life, for the world, and you choose to be an artist because you are interested in the world. You are actually interested in what is
Absolutely.
around. Somehow it is related with what you were saying of these projects. I'm not here is also like that. I mean, we are all there, but we are not in the same spot. So it is interesting, right, how to connect those things. So yeah. What was that place where you thought you became an artist? Where your practice as an artist started? What was the place?
I think it actually, with the publication in the magazine, is when I realized that's the first time after that I ever referred to myself as an artist, because I always felt before that was a bit egotistical. I thought it was a bit, too much to, well, I'm an artist. Well, who says you're an artist? Well, I say I'm an artist. And there's a balance in there, I think, as individuals and as artists. For me, it came late. It came when I got published in that magazine. It's like, they see me as an artist. I wanted to be an artist. I've always wanted to say I'm an artist, but I was always hesitant to say that. And it was after that when I finally said, I'm an artist.
Yeah. Somehow art, it is about the curiosity of connections and, the world and life, how it works. And it's also a way to express that idea that you are building on yourself and of the world.
Yeah.
So Dennis, thank you so much for this time. It was wonderful to talk with you again.
Alejandro, it's so good to see you. Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity. And my time with you at Zoom Lab was golden. It was amazing. You're a wonderful host, and love the school, love the students, love the experience. Thank you so much.